Jake Turner was halfway through his third cup of gas station coffee when he merged back onto Highway 101, headed north towards San Luis Obispo. It wasn't the worst brew he'd had this week, but it definitely wasn't something he'd brag about either. That's just the way it was on the road. Long stretches of pavement, sketchy coffee, and the occasional miracle when you found a place that actually served it fresh. He was driving his 2014 Peterbilt 579, affectionately dubbed Big Red. The rig had seen better days, but Jake kept her clean, tuned, and rumbling like a dream. She was more home than any place with a street address. He'd been on the road most of his adult life, ever since the army days ended and civilian life hadn't quite fit right. Trucking gave him freedom, solitude, and a front-row seat to America. That Tuesday afternoon had the kind of sky that made you forget the world was on fire. Light blue, a few puffy clouds, sun hanging lazy overhead, the kind of day that tricked you into thinking nothing unusual would happen. And Jake, a creature of routine and repetition, wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. His delivery was due in Sacramento by morning, and he was making good time. Then he saw it. About 100 yards ahead, pulled off to the right shoulder, was a black motorcycle leaned awkwardly near the guardrail. A man was crouched beside it, one knee on the pavement, helmet beside him, looking at the rear tire like it had personally betrayed him. Jake slowed down instinctively. Truckers have an unspoken code. When you see someone on the side of the road, especially with a flat or broken-down vehicle, you don't just drive by. At least not if you've still got a little decency left in you. Jake hit the blinker, eased Big Red onto the shoulder with practiced precision, and parked a few dozen feet ahead of the motorcycle. He tossed the empty coffee cup into the passenger footwell and climbed down, boots thudding onto the warm asphalt. "Hey there!" Jake called out as he walked toward the biker. "Everything all right?" The man looked up, squinting under the brim of a baseball cap. He had that familiar look, part grateful, part frustrated. "Blew the back tire," he said, standing up and brushing his jeans off. "Thought I packed the toolkit, but I must have left it in my garage." Jake nodded. "Happens to the best of us." The guy extended a hand. "I'm Keanu." Jake shook it firmly. "Jake Turner. Nice to meet you." Keanu sounded familiar, but Jake didn't place it right away. Truth be told, he wasn't the best with celebrity names or Hollywood trivia. He spent more time with CB radios and country music than Netflix. "Appreciate you stopping," Keanu added, picking up the helmet and tucking it under his arm. "I was going to start walking toward the last exit, but it looked like 10 miles or so." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, not much out here but hot pavement and rattlesnakes. I've got a tire patch kit and some tools in the back of the cab. If we're lucky, we can get you rolling again." Keanu looked genuinely surprised. "You sure? That's incredibly kind of you." Jake shrugged. "Ain't a big deal. Done this more times than I can count. Besides, I've got time to spare and this stretch of road's about as boring as they come." They walked back to Big Red and Jake climbed into the side compartment of his truck. A few moments later, he returned with a portable air compressor, a tire plug kit, and a heavy-duty tool bag that had seen more roadside drama than a soap opera marathon. As Jake worked on removing the busted tire, Keanu crouched beside him, watching closely. He didn't try to get in the way or act like he knew what he was doing. Just observed quietly, respectful, grateful. "You ride often?" Jake asked as he loosened a lug nut. "Whenever I can," Keanu said, brushing sweat off his forehead. "It clears my head. Something about being on the road. No filters, no distractions. Just you and the machine." Jake smiled. "Yeah, my brother used to say that. We rode Harleys back in the day, before I went full-time with the trucking gig." "What happened?" Jake paused for half a second, then answered honestly. "He passed a few years back, hit by a drunk driver just outside Flagstaff. Bastard never even hit the brakes." "I'm sorry, man," Keanu said, his voice quiet. "That's awful." Jake nodded. "Yeah, but we had some good rides together. Used to cruise from Arizona all the way to Big Sur. He always took the curves a little too fast." Keanu smiled gently. "Sounds like he lived full throttle." Jake laughed. "That's one way to put it." The two worked in a rhythm, Jake doing most of the heavy lifting while Keanu handed him tools, asked thoughtful questions, and genuinely listened to the answers. It wasn't like most roadside exchanges Jake had experienced, where folks were either too frazzled or too proud to say thanks. This guy was calm, centered, almost. Jake reinflated the patched tire and gave it a test spin. "That'll get you to the next town easy," he said. "Might not want to take any mountain passes just yet, though." Keanu looked at the wheel, then at Jake, his expression somewhere between admiration and disbelief. "You just saved my day." Jake wiped his hands on an old shop rag. "Glad to help. Like I said, trucker code." Keanu walked over to his bike, strapped his helmet back onto the seat, then turned to Jake. "You mind if I take a picture with you? Not for social media, just for me, to remember people who show up when they don't have to." Jake raised an eyebrow but smiled. "Sure, why not?" They snapped a quick photo beside the motorcycle, Keanu's arm slung casually around Jake's shoulder. After that, Keanu pulled out his phone again. "Mind giving me your number? I might want to send you something later. Not junk, just a thank you." Jake hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know I don't," Keanu cut in, "but I'd like to." Jake nodded and gave him his number. "All right, you ride safe, Keanu." "You too, Jake. Thanks again." And with that, Keanu Reeves, though Jake still hadn't realized who exactly he was, mounted his bike, fired up the engine, and cruised off down the highway, the low rumble fading into the horizon. Jake stood there for a moment, watching him disappear. Then he headed back to Big Red, climbed up, and got back on the road. Another good deed done, another flat tire patched. Just another day. He didn't think twice about it. But in 48 hours, his life was going to change, and it all started with a stranger and a blown tire on Highway 101. Jake was 20 miles up the road and halfway through a bag of beef jerky when his phone buzzed in the center console. It was a text from an unknown number. "Thanks again, Jake. You didn't just help with a flat. You made my day better. Keanu." Jake grinned. Simple guy, kind attitude. Probably someone important, judging by the sleek motorcycle and how he carried himself. But honestly, Jake didn't give it much thought. He'd helped people before. Families with busted radiators, backpackers with dead batteries, even a couple stranded honeymooners. Helping was just part of the job when you drove America's veins day in and day out. Besides, Keanu wasn't the talk-your-ear-off type. He was calm, polite, asked questions, listened to the answers, and didn't act like the world owed him a thing. That alone made him stand out more than whatever motorcycle he was riding. Jake settled into the rhythm of the road again, humming to the twang of an old George Strait song playing low on the cab's speakers. The sun was starting to dip westward, washing the rolls in a soft, orange glow. He had about 3 more hours before he planned to stop for the night in Paso Robles. There was a truck stop there with a diner that served surprisingly good meatloaf. Plus, they didn't water down their sweet tea. By the time he pulled in, the diner parking lot had a few pickups, 2 RVs, and a couple other big rigs lined up. He parked Big Red in the back corner, killed the engine, and stretched with a satisfied groan before heading inside. "Evening, Jake!" The waitress called out as he walked in. "Evening, Denise," Jake replied. He'd been through this place enough that she knew his name, coffee order, and usual dinner rotation by heart. He slid into his usual booth and dropped his phone on the table beside the menu. Denise poured him a steaming cup of coffee without asking, and handed him a laminated menu out of habit. "You look like you've had a long day," Jake shrugged. "Same as always. Hauled freight from Bakersfield, patched a tire for a stranded biker. Now I'm here thinking about your meatloaf." She chuckled. "You're easy to please." Just as Jake was flipping through the menu out of habit, he already knew what he wanted. Denise leaned in, frowning at his phone screen. "Wait, is that a photo of you with Keanu Reeves?" Jake raised his eyebrow. "Who?" She pointed at the image on his lock screen. Keanu had sent it over earlier that afternoon. "That's Keanu Reeves. You know, The Matrix, John Wick, Speed. You're kidding me, right?" Jake blinked. "That guy? Seriously?" Denise laughed out loud. "You didn't recognize Keanu Reeves? Jake, the man's a legend." Jake chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, he didn't introduce himself as a movie star, just Keanu. Figured he was one of those artsy types who liked bikes and solitude." She shook her head, still smiling. "That man's been in some of the biggest movies of the last 25 years, and he's known for being the nicest guy in Hollywood." Jake took a sip of his coffee. Well, I believe that part. He was real decent, humble, didn't act like a big deal. Denise leaned against the counter, arms crossed. So what'd he say? Did he tell you who he was? Jake shook his head. Nope. We talked about bikes, the road, my brother. He asked for my number, said he might send something. Oh, honey, she said with a grin. You're in for a surprise. Jake laughed. I doubt it. He probably just wanted to say thanks again. But the next morning would prove otherwise. Jake woke up early, just after 5:30 a.m., in the sleeper cab of Big Red. He grabbed a quick shower at the truck stop, refilled his coffee thermos, and got back on the road. As usual, it was all muscle memory, the shifting, the route, the GPS updates. He was rolling through farmland by mid-morning, radio tuned low to an oldies station. Around 10 a.m., his phone buzzed again. Hey, Jake, any chance you're free Friday afternoon? Got something I want to run by you. I'll send a car. Jake stared at the message, brow furrowed. This guy was serious? He responded, You don't have to go through all that trouble. I'm usually parked near San Jose Fridays anyway. What's up? A few seconds later, another text. That works. I'll have someone reach out with details. Really appreciate it, man. Jake shook his head and chuckled. This was starting to feel like something out of a movie. Still, he wasn't the type to get starstruck. The guy had a flat. Jake helped him out. End of story. Or so he thought. By Friday, Jake had wrapped up his last delivery early. He was parked at a quiet rest area just outside San Jose, flipping through a paperback Western novel when a black Lincoln Navigator pulled up beside Big Red. A sharply dressed man stepped out and approached the cab window. You Jake Turner? The man asked with a friendly nod. Jake lowered the window. Yeah, that's me. I'm with Keanu Reeves. He asked me to bring you over. Jake raised an eyebrow. You mean this isn't a prank? The man grinned. I promise it's legit. Jake grabbed his cap, locked up the cab and followed the driver into the SUV. They didn't talk much on the ride, just light banter about traffic, weather and a mutual dislike for San Jose drivers. They pulled up to a private garage on the outskirts of town, tucked behind a nondescript building. Jake got out and looked around. The place looked more like a custom car shop than a house, sleek lines, clean architecture, garage doors big enough for RVs. The garage door rolled open slowly. Inside stood Keanu. Next to him sat a brand new Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, polished to perfection. Chrome pipes, deep black finish, not a single scratch on it. Jake blinked. What the hell is this? Keanu walked up smiling. A thank you. Jake shook his head. You're kidding. Nope, I meant what I said. You didn't help me because of who I was. You helped because it's who you are. That means something. Jake took a slow step forward, looking over the bike. Keanu, this is too much. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Keanu replied. Just ride, and remember your brother while you do. Jake stood there, stunned. This wasn't just a gesture. This was huge. He hadn't done anything for Keanu except fix a tire and have a chat. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about what he did. Maybe it was about how he did it. Jake Turner had always considered himself a simple man. He found solace in the hum of his truck's engine, the open road stretching endlessly before him, and the quiet moments of reflection that came with long hauls. But ever since that unexpected encounter with Keanu Reeves, his life had taken a turn he hadn't anticipated. It had been a week since Jake received the brand new Harley-Davidson Fat Boy from Keanu as a token of gratitude. The bike gleamed in his garage, a symbol of an extraordinary moment in his otherwise ordinary life. He hadn't ridden it yet, choosing instead to admire it from afar, still wrapping his head around the surreal experience. One evening, as Jake sat on his porch sipping a cold beer, his phone buzzed with a new message. Hey Jake, hope you're doing well. I'm organizing a small gathering this weekend at my place in Malibu. Would love for you to come. It'll be a relaxed get-together with some friends. Let me know if you can make it. Keanu. Jake stared at the message, disbelief washing over him. An invitation to Keanu Reeves' house in Malibu? It felt like something out of a dream. He took another sip of his beer, contemplating the offer. After a moment's thought, he typed back, Thanks for the invite, Keanu. I'd be honored to come. Just let me know the details. The following day, Jake received an email with the address, directions, and a note. Looking forward to seeing you, Jake. The journey to Malibu. Jake decided to make the trip on the Harley. It seemed fitting, given the circumstances. He packed a small overnight bag, secured it to the bike, and set off early Saturday morning. The ride down the Pacific Coast Highway was breathtaking, with the ocean on one side and rolling hills on the other. The wind in his face and the rumble of the engine beneath him made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. As he approached Malibu, the scenery shifted to luxurious homes perched on cliffs, overlooking the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Jake followed the directions, eventually arriving at a gated property. He pressed the intercom button and a familiar voice greeted him. "Hey, Jake. Glad you made it. Come on in." The gate swung open, and Jake rode up the winding driveway, taking in the stunning architecture and meticulously landscaped grounds. He parked the bike and was met at the entrance by Keanu, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, his signature laid-back demeanor evident. "Jake, great to see you," Keanu said, extending a hand. "Good to see you too, Keanu. Thanks for the invite. Come on in. Let me introduce you to some friends." Meeting the stars. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the ocean. A group of people mingled in the living area, chatting and laughing. Keanu led Jake over to a group near the fireplace. "Everyone, this is Jake Turner. He's the reason I made it to my meeting last week. Helped me out when I had a flat tire." The group turned to greet Jake, offering smiles and handshakes. Among them were familiar faces, actors, musicians, and industry professionals. Jake recognized a few, but tried to play it cool. "Nice to meet you all," Jake said, feeling slightly out of place but welcome nonetheless. As the evening progressed, Jake found himself engaged in conversations about music, travel, and life on the road. He shared stories from his trucking days which captivated the group. They listened intently, fascinated by his experiences and perspective. Keanu joined him later, handing him a glass of whiskey. "You're a hit, Jake. Everyone's loving your stories." Jake chuckled. "Just sharing a bit of my world. Well, it's a world many of us don't get to see. It's refreshing." A night to remember. As the night wore on, the gathering moved to the outdoor patio where a fire pit crackled and the ocean waves provided a soothing backdrop. Jake sat with Keanu and a few others, discussing everything from philosophy to motorcycles. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and Jake felt a sense of camaraderie he hadn't experienced in a long time. At one point, Keanu turned to Jake. "You know, Jake, your kindness reminded me that there are still good people out there. It's easy to get jaded in this industry, but meeting you was a breath of fresh air." Jake looked down, humbled. "I was just doing what anyone should do. Maybe, but not everyone does, and that's why it mattered." The group raised their glasses in a toast to unexpected friendships and the kindness of strangers. The morning after. Jake woke up the next morning in one of the guest rooms, sunlight streaming through the windows. He stretched and got dressed, making his way to the kitchen, where Keanu was brewing coffee. "Morning, Jake. Sleep well?" "Like a rock. Thanks again for the hospitality." "Anytime. It was great having you here." They sat on the patio, sipping coffee and watching the waves. "Heading back today?" Keanu asked. "Yeah, got to get back on the road." "Well, before you go, there's something I want to show you." Keanu led Jake to a separate garage on the property. Inside was a collection of motorcycles, each more impressive than the last. He walked over to a sleek, custom-built bike. "This one's for you. Built it with you in mind." Jake was speechless. "Keanu, I can't accept this." "You can, and you will. Consider it a token of appreciation for reminding me of the goodness in people." Jake ran his hand over the bike, taking in the craftsmanship. "Thank you. This means a lot." Back on the road, Jake rode the new bike back home, the engine's purr and the wind in his face invigorating his spirit. He reflected on the past week, the chance encounter, the unexpected friendship, and the generosity he'd experienced. It was a reminder that life could surprise you when you least expected it. As he pulled into his driveway, he looked back at the road behind him, a smile spreading across his face. The journey had been extraordinary, and he knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Jake Turner had always found solace on the open road. The hum of the engine, the wind against his face, and the endless horizon provided a sense of freedom unmatched by anything else. But nothing could have prepared him for the journey that lay ahead, a journey that would intertwine his life with that of Hollywood star Keanu Reeves in ways he never imagined. An unexpected invitation. It had been a few weeks since Jake's chance encounter with Keanu. They had kept in touch sporadically, exchanging texts and sharing stories about their mutual love for motorcycles. One evening, as Jake was settling in after a long haul, his phone buzzed with a message that made him do a double take. "Hey Jake, I'm organising a charity motorcycle ride next month to support children's hospitals across the country. I'd be honoured if you'd join me. It's a week-long journey starting from Los Angeles to New York. Let me know if you're in." Jake stared at the message, his heart pounding. A cross-country ride with Keanu Reeves for a noble cause? It sounded like the adventure of a lifetime. Without hesitation, he replied, "Count me in. Just tell me when and where." Gearing up. In the weeks leading up to the ride, Jake prepared meticulously. He serviced his Harley-Davidson, ensuring it was in top condition for the long journey ahead. He also took the time to research the route, familiarizing himself with the various stops and the children's hospitals they would be visiting. Meanwhile, Keanu was busy rallying support for the event. He reached out to fellow motorcycle enthusiasts, celebrities, and philanthropists, encouraging them to join the cause. The response was overwhelming, with many eager to participate and contribute. The journey begins. The day of the ride arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Dozens of riders gathered at a designated spot in Los Angeles, their motorcycles gleaming under the morning sun. Jake spotted Keanu amidst the crowd, clad in his signature black leather jacket and helmet. "Jake!" Keanu called out, waving him over. "Keanu, good to see you," Jake replied, shaking his hand. "Ready for the ride of a lifetime?" "Absolutely." With engines roaring, the convoy set off, weaving through the city streets before hitting the open highway. The sight was nothing short of spectacular. A sea of motorcycles cruising in unison, united by a common purpose. Touching lives, at each stop along the way, the group visited children's hospitals, bringing joy and hope to young patients and their families. They delivered toys, spent time with the children, and raised funds for medical treatments and research. Jake was deeply moved by the resilience and courage of the kids he met. One particular encounter stayed with him. A young girl named Lily, battling leukemia. Despite her condition, she radiated positivity and strength. Jake spent hours talking to her, sharing stories from the road, and even letting her sit on his motorcycle. Her laughter was infectious, and her spirit left an indelible mark on his heart. Bonding on the road. As the days passed, Jake and Keanu grew closer, their friendship solidifying with each mile. They shared meals at roadside diners, camped under the stars, and engaged in deep conversations about life, dreams, and the importance of giving back. Jake learned more about Keanu's passion for motorcycles and his dedication to philanthropy. Keanu, in turn, was inspired by Jake's humility, kindness, and unwavering commitment to helping others. The final stretch. After a week on the road, the convoy approached New York City, their final destination. The journey had been transformative, not just for the children they had helped, but for the riders themselves. They had formed a tight-knit community, bonded by shared experiences and a collective mission. Upon arrival, a grand event was held to celebrate the success of the ride. Speeches were made, funds were tallied, and stories were shared. Jake was invited to the stage, where Keanu presented him with a plaque recognizing his invaluable contribution to the cause. "Jake Turner," Keanu announced, "your selflessness and dedication have touched countless lives. Thank you for being an inspiration to us all." Jake, overwhelmed with emotion, accepted the plaque, his eyes glistening. A new beginning. The ride concluded, but its impact endured. Jake returned home, forever changed by the experience. He continued to stay in touch with Keanu, and together they planned future rides and charitable endeavors. Jake also started a local motorcycle club focused on community service, organizing events to support various causes. His story inspired others to take action, proving that one act of kindness could indeed spark a chain reaction of goodwill. As he rode down familiar roads, the wind in his face and the horizon ahead, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought him here. A simple gesture, a helping hand extended to a stranger, had led to a life-changing adventure, new friendships, and a renewed sense of purpose. And so, with the engine's hum as his soundtrack and the open road as his canvas, Jake Turner continued his ride, ever ready for the next chapter in his extraordinary journey.